Library computer, data being received. Working.
Fascinating.
You're in the hands of an adolescent.
Hey, welcome to the final reading report for March 2026. Thank you for being here. And I'm recording this on March 29th. It's very possible I'll get another book read before the end of March, but that will have to be on the April report because I don't think I'll have a chance to make this video over the next couple of days. So here are the remaining 5 books I've read in March, and let's just get started. The Avengers in The Man Who Stole Tomorrow by David Michelinie. I'm pretty sure I'm saying his name right. I have seen his name in print a million times because he was an excellent writer for the Avengers and for Iron Man back in the 70s and 80s. But I haven't actually not absolutely sure that's how you say his name aloud. But I'm pretty sure Michelinie is correct. Anyway, this is the next to last book in the Marvel novel series that came out in the late 70s. It was a great series. The only one I've disliked was the Doctor Strange one, which ironically was written by the same guy who wrote the Iron Man one, which is my favorite. This one is definitely at least in the top 5. It's a great deal of fun. In this one, an Eskimo who has somehow gained enormous power kidnaps Captain America, encases him in quote-unquote ice that won't melt, and sends a giant polar bear made of pure energy after the Submariner. His motives go back several years to the time Cap was found frozen in ice and rescued by the Avengers. So now the remaining members of the current rosters of the Avengers, and in this book it's Thor, Iron Man, Beast, Vision, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver, must once again rescue Cap and help Namor against the polar bear, and figure out what the heck's going on. The answer turns out to lie in the 40th century at the current headquarters of Kang, the villain who can manipulate time. This, in turn, leads to battles with time-displaced Nazis, dinosaurs, ape men, knights, samurai, aliens, and others. And it's really a fun novel, with a plot that drips with comic book logic and contains a variety of entertaining action set pieces and a fair amount of humor. Michelinie understands the personalities of the various Avengers, and he portrays them accurately. I especially enjoyed the Day is Saved moment in the climax that reminds us that the Beast isn't just a hairy acrobat who makes humorous quips, but a brilliant scientist as well. And there's some dialogue in the epilogue that nails Captain America's inherent nobility. Now, Michelinie's portrayal of Kang is interesting. In this story, he's nuttier than a barrel full of time-displaced monkeys. I don't recall a comic book story from the Bronze Age of comics that show him as a barely rational nut job, spouting silly one-liners. He was more the egotistical, spouting almost Shakespearean dialogue type guy. But this is a fun version of the character. I think this particular characterization is unique to this novel, but it's fun, and I just make that as an observation, not as a complaint. So as I said, this isn't my absolute favorite of the 11 books in the Marvel novel series. I haven't reread Murder Moon yet, which will have the Hulk and Spider-Man, but I do remember enjoying it, and I'm sure I will again. But, this one is definitely in my top 5. For a comic book fan, it's a lively and entertaining story. So we jump from the 40th century back to the early 19th century with Davy Crocket number 7, Texican Terror by David Robbinsn. They were originally written under the pen name David Thompson. And this is 7 out of 8, so I've still got one more to go in the Davy Crocket series. So I can't declare this one as the best in the series yet, because I have never read these before. But the last book will have a high hill to climb to beat Texican Terror. This was a lot of fun. In the novel before this, Davy and his sidekick Flavius, in order to rescue a woman, had pursued Comanches down into Texas. They befriended several Texicans along the way. That one ended with the woman, along with a Texas woman, rescued and Davy invited to visit San Antonio. So that's where this book picks up. And once there, kind of an interesting little moment, somebody points out a mission called the Alamo. But of course, Davy has no idea what an important location that will be for him in another dozen years. Anyway, the main action comes when a ranch is raided by freebooters. These are former pirates, really ruthless guys, turned land outlaws. Their leader, Blackjack Tar, is a huge man who served in the British Navy prior to serving Pirate King Jean Lafitte. He's now got his own land-based crew of cutthroats. And one of the strengths of the novel is giving Blackjack an interesting backstory and generating just a little bit of sympathy for him without excusing his villainy. So anyway, 2 women are kidnapped during the raid, including the woman who had been kidnapped by Comanches in the previous one and had been kidnapped by people in the one before that. It's kind of her job. She comes from the Lois Lane school of damsels in distress. Davy and Flavius and 2 Texicans and a score of caballeros ride out after the freebooters. There's captures, there's escapes, there's chases. Finally, the good guys, along with the women, are trapped in a gully, their ammunition running low as they hold off a much larger force of freebooters. It's a superbly written last stand sequence, with the freebooters trying several different tactics to overrun the Texicans, taking casualties, but slowly whittling down the good guys. In the meantime, Davy improvises a clever scheme of his own to drive off one of those attacks. The last chapter has Blackjack and Davy going at it in a violent and intense one-on-one duel. Last stand situations have been done a zillion times in adventure fictions. This is nothing new in that regard. But when done right, they become one of my favorite adventure tropes. It's the reason you keep running into last stand situations in adventure novels, is because they're just so inherently dramatic. And in this book, it's definitely done right. It is an amazing action sequence. Next, we have The Shadow, The Crime Clinic, written by Maxwell Grant, actually written by Walter Gibson under the pen name Maxwell Grant. It's from 1933, and it's the 43rd Shadow novel that came out in the Shadow magazine. I read this one for the Shadowed Book Club, being run on a monthly basis by the Shadowed Circle magazine. How many times will I see Shadow in the next few minutes, I wonder? So, and this was another good one. I've really been enjoying revisiting these Shadow novels and running into some like this one that I've never happened to read before. In this one, a master criminal, known only as the Jackdaw, pulls off a locked room murder and jewel robbery. Later on, the Jackdaw uses an armed gang to raid a mansion to rob it. One of his skills as a crook is that he varies his methodology depending on the job that needs to be done. But master criminals attract master crime fighters, and the Shadow is soon on the trail of the Jackdaw. And this is a good, solid Shadow yarn, with several good action scenes, a number of excellent red herrings when you're trying to figure out who the Jackdaw is, and a satisfying solution to both how the locked room crime was committed and who the Jackdaw really is. Aside from following along with the Avengers, with the Shadows investigation, we also walk side by side with Police Inspector Joe Cardona as he follows up his own line of inquiry and we also hang out with a man being blackmailed into helping the Jackdaw. There's actually a lot of stuff going on in this novel, and it's impressive how it neatly ties up in the end. Here we go. Teddy Roosevelt, or Theodore Roosevelt. I almost always just instinctively say Teddy. Theodore Roosevelt on Books and Reading. This is edited by Mark West. And I tell you, no matter how voracious a reader you may be, reading about the sheer volume of both the reading and the writing that Theodore Roosevelt accomplished in his life will make you feel inadequate. This volume contains essays and a speech and excerpts from Roosevelt's autobiography that give his views on books and readings. There's a chapter on the books he read as a child that helped give him a love of reading. There's an introduction he read to a book on American literature, which, along with a speech he gave called Nationalism in Art and Literature, both of these discuss the importance of a country developing its own distinctive voice in the fields of art and literature. There is, not surprisingly, an essay about the best books on big game hunting. And even if you yourself are not a hunter, it's so well written and interesting that you'll find it worthwhile anyway. He uses a review praising Mahan's The Influence of Sea Power Upon History to argue that the United States needs to expand its own, at that time, small navy. And perhaps the most entertaining essay is titled Books That I Have Read and How I Do My Reading, which is guaranteed to add some titles to your own to-be-read list. It's worthwhile reading anything T.R. wrote because of his clear, erudite style. He's just fun to read. But anyone who enjoys reading will find something to enjoy in this book. Lastly, I finished up The Pirate Adventures by Robert E. Howard, one of the number of excellent volumes being currently published by the Robert E. Howard Foundation. And this one is exactly what it says on the cover. It's a collection of Howard's pirate-themed stories and poems. And it's not surprising that Howard, who's one of the best adventure fiction writers in history, tells excellent pirate yarns. It's actually kind of surprising that only one of the stories here, Black Vulmia's Vengeance, was published in his lifetime. These stories aren't among his best ever, but he never wrote a story that didn't entertain. These were all worth reading. I think these were all worth including in a pulp magazine. Now, his poems are atmospheric and pretty much beg to be read aloud. You know, Howard's fame is based largely on his prose fiction, but he was a superb poet as well, and this volume helps remind us of that. For the short stories and novellas, it includes The Isle of Pirates' Doom, which introduces us to the female pirate Helen Tavrell, her one and only appearance, probably because the story did not sell during Howard's lifetime. She's not quite as epically cool as Valerius or Red Sonja, but she's still pretty cool. Blades of the Brotherhood was first written as a Solomon Kane story in 1929, but it didn't sell. This was probably because it lacked the supernatural elements that were an integral part of Kane's adventures. So Howard rewrote it in 1933, starring a grim Puritan appropriately named Malachi Grimm. Grimm is pretty much a Kane clone in terms of personality. And this isn't a bad thing, because Kane is pretty awesome, and consequently so is Grimm. The story still didn't sell during the author's lifetime. Swords of the Red Brotherhood is my favorite in this collection. It's got pirates, hidden treasures, savage Indians, double crosses, and triple crosses. It's all enormous fun. Howard later rewrote it into a Conan story, but this original version is the better of the two versions. It just needs that swashbuckling Golden Age of Piracy vibe to really work. The protagonist in this version is Irish pirate Black Vulmia, and he is the star of the last story in this volume, Black Vulmia's Vengeance. The action takes place on a tropical island. There's battles, revenge, redemption, and a giant snake, all mixed together to just form another satisfying yarn. Howard continues to be one of my favorite authors. This volume is definitely worth getting and reading if you enjoy his fiction. If you don't enjoy his fiction, by golly, there's something wrong with you. And what am I reading now? Well, that Avengers novel I read on my Serial app. I loaded it into the app and it sent me one chapter a day. And I've been doing that with media tie-in novels that I've found electronic versions of on the Internet Archive. And I have no reason for doing that other than it's just fun to do. And so now I am currently about 6 chapters into Planet of the Apes #4, Lord of the Apes by George Alec Effinger. This one novelizes, as did the first 3, novelizes 2 different episodes of the TV series. And I have been enjoying these. I love that little blurb on the bottom, the most popular science fiction series since Star Trek. It only lasted a year, and then, except for those of us who are true Planet of the Apes fans, it's largely been forgotten. So a little bit of an exaggerated blurb there, Galaxy Magazine. But these books are still good, and they're worth remembering, and they're worth reading again. As I said in my last reading report, I think, I was at a dinner with my wife, who's a regent of the local chapter of the DAR. It was a DAR event where they were introducing lots of people, and it was actually kind of dull. And my wife knew it would be dull, and so she allowed me to read on my phone. I started The Count of Monte Cristo, which is one of the most fantastic novels ever written. Been a long time since I've reread it, so I'm glad I'm rewriting again. Since I don't want to take so much time out from reading other books while I finish this, I'm reading it kind of in a serial fashion as well. The relatively short chapters, I'm doing 2 or 3 chapters a day usually. And finally, I'm about to start the third of the 4 Eliot Ness novels written by Max Allan Collins, Bulletproof. These are set after Eliot's career as a federal agent was over. He became what was called, I think it was safety director of Cleveland, where he was in charge of the police department and the fire department. He was cleaning up corruption. In the previous novel, he was after a serial killer. In this one, I haven't started it yet. I don't remember exactly what the plot is. And I read several of these many years ago. I don't think this is one of the ones I read many years ago, so this will be a completely new one to me. But it's Max Allan Collins writing an historical mystery, which means it will be good. And that's it for now. Once again, because I'm the backwater of BookTube and I only get a few hits per video, I enjoy doing these and will continue to geek out, enjoying my books as long as I know there's at least a few people out there. So as you have been doing, those of you who watch these regularly, continue to hit the like button just so I know you're out there. And don't hesitate to comment. Don't comment just to comment, because I know you're out there because you're liking the videos and I do get a few views and I appreciate that. But, comment on any of these books you've read. If you want to suggest something you would like me to read because you want to know what I think, go ahead and do that. I will probably, before the next reading report comes up, have read a book called Snow Treasure, which was mentioned in a comment on one of my videos, and I'm very much looking forward to it. So comment if you have something to say or a book recommendation, or if you've read anything that I've just talked about, your own views on it, your views on the Planet of the Apes universe or the Avengers. At least hit the like button, just so that I know there's a few people out there watching. That's all I need to keep going. And just thank you again for listening.